Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Well, welcome, Sahra. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
And I would love to hear a little bit about your early life. You were born in Israel?
Yes.
And
It was called Palestine in those days.
okay.
However, we always called it Israel since the beginning of the century, 20th century.
Okay. And were your parents pioneers?
Yes.
And how did they make their living?
Well, my father bought an orange groves when he was still in Germany. And when he came to Israel, it was very funny because he wore a white suit and a cork hat. And they looked at him like he came out of a movie.
Yeah.
People worked in that place. And it was in a little village, and this is how he made his living, so to speak. He only used Israeli labor. So at one point, my mother had to go and help him because that was his dream.
Oh.
My mother came from England, so when World War II started, she decided to go and open a bar for soldiers because she spoke English.
In Israel?
In Israel, yeah. But my first...
Interesting, yeah.
But at first I was growing in a little village that had a neighboring village that was Arabic, and we got along very well. However, there were also terrorists in those days. And so my father and other men have to go and guard in the orange groves so that, and they were coming and killing. My mother found out that my father was killed.
Oh.
And she was doing first aid. And no matter what, they had to give first aid, whether it's enemy or not. And she had to dress the person supposedly killed my father. Only my father changed position with another person, and the other person died.
What other memories do you have of that period?
Oh, I have many memories. My mother went to Tel Aviv afterwards.
For the bar?
For the bar. Only she did not cook or do anything. You know, she went to university, she spoke 8 languages, she was very good in public relations. And so it was very successful, and it was, it made my father keep the orange groves, which was his dream. Because in those days, during World War II, there was no market for oranges. So he was just there. I also, I grew up in that little settlement, and my parents left me there.
What kind of a settlement?
It was a small village. But in that small village was also the headquarters of the Haganah, which
was, or is, was?
Well, it was. It was the underground, but not the terrorist underground, the one that became afterwards the government. So I knew Morse code
Yes.
before I knew the alphabet.
You knew what?
Morse code. Because we were around all
Yes,
these
I learned Morse code in college.
soldiers
Yeah.
and all that. It was very nice. I loved it, you know, because I was like a tomboy, and it was great. But then my parents moved me to Tel Aviv, and went to school and had a very nice childhood. Um, after school, you have to go to the army. So I volunteered to go to something that was commando. Because my mother tried to keep me in cotton.
Yeah. Yeah.
She
You
thought
had a
that,
daredevil in you.
yeah, there was a daredevil with me. Actually, at one time I was in a youth movement
What was that
while I
about?
was in school. Well, I don't know how to explain a youth movement because they don't have it here. The youth movement prepares you to a life in a kibbutz, which is, you know what a kibbutz is?
I believe it's communal living.
Communal living, and I was one of those because my parents, I call them imperialists.
Where did you get that from?
The youth movement.
Oh, interesting.
And so I had a couple of things that happened. Every summer we used to go to a kibbutz and work. And one summer I danced so hard that I broke my elbow. So I had to be brought to Tiberias. And we had to go with no lights because the Syrians were up on the mountains and they were shooting down. That was during 52nd, you know, the War of Independence and all that. I'm going through a lot of time.
Yes, please do.
And so they took me to Tiberias and I was there and they had to operate. My mother thought that I was in the nearby town because we had no telephones. She didn't know I was on the Upper Galilee. So I sent somebody to tell my parents that it's okay, they only have to sign a little thing. The little thing is to be operated, for me to be operated. And well, the next day they were there with an ambulance and they took me to Tel Aviv and I was operated on, and I'm still missing one bone here. That's from there. What else? I was a good student.
What is this commando all about?
When you go to the army,
Yes.
before I even went to the army, I had training to go to the army. You know,
Through the
every
youth
time-
movement.
Not
Or
only
separate?
that, even in school,
Oh.
we had that to teach us the beginning before you go to the army. If you go to a special unit, which was commando. The commando was that we had 6 weeks of training. We got training in everything but bayonets. And then we went into a kibbutz and we worked on the fields, and at night we used to go on guard. And I used a sub-automatic
Used what?
a sub-automatic machine
A
gun.
sub-automatic machine. What were you guarding against?
They called them fada'in at that time, which were terrorists that were coming from Jordan, from Syria. They were just going and they were killing in kibbutzim and places like that. So they were going at night. So we were guarding at night.
How could you tell if it was a friend or foe? It's dark.
Well, you know.
You know?
Yes. Because a friend will not walk at that time. Or will not walk on
We'll
that.
go out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you know. But you don't know if you killed them. Because we use the sub-automatic.
Which means?
You shoot through the
Left to right or right to left?
both ways,
Yes.
but you shoot this way. What would you call it?
I would just a
You don't
rotational
shoot this
spray.
way.
You don't really aim,
You don't aim.
right? You
You
spray.
go 180 degrees. So that's one of the things. While I was in school, I had to count 5 bullets that came from Jaffa before I crossed the street. I mean, it was time of war.
What does that mean? You had to count 5 bullets before you
Well,
crossed from.
the person in the mosque was shooting at us, at the street. And it was going all the way from my school to my house. So 5 bullets are in a magazine. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, run.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. To grow up with that?
Yeah. It doesn't mean it was terrible. I mean, during the War of Independence, I was tall. So I went to the border to deliver messages. We didn't have any telephones.
That is just.
So
and
my
this is,
mother didn't know where I was. I said that I was going to do homework. And I was in the border delivering messages.
why was it an advantage to be tall?
Because they wouldn't take me at the age of 11.
Into the army?
No, into going to the border to deliver messages.
I see, but you grew up and therefore.
I was tall, and I said I was 15. So one time I couldn't go home at the right time, and my mother went to my friend, and my friend thought that I was dead. She told her the whole story, and my mother went to the place where we were supposed to go back to, and I came, and I had braids. She took me by my braids, like that. And that was the end of the story.
Did you decide to be different, to be more communicative with her, or did you continue as
no.
a defender? Or both?
My mother thought that I was a little girl. I didn't think I was a little girl, so I rebelled. That's why I went to a kibbutz, and I was there, and I continued. And afterwards, this is all little things that happen here, there, and everywhere. When I was also loaned to the history department to do the history of the war, which was very interesting.
47?
Of 48, yeah.
48.
Mm-hmm. And I did that. And it was very hot in the place where I was at.
Because
which
no
was
air
at
conditioning, of course.
headquarter. And at lunchtime, I decided to go to sleep on the documents. And at that time, Moshe Dayan, who was the head, went by and saw me, and he stole the documents. And I was out of bounds because that means I couldn't leave the headquarters, and I may have had to be going to trial. On the weekend, he came by. I was manning the telephone throughout the country with somebody else, and he called me to sign graduations of documents. And I gave him the papers, and he said to me, "Where do you work now?" I said, "In the historical branch." And he said, "Oh, there's a girl there that's going to be in trouble." I said, "Oh, yeah, no." He said to me, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, she comes from a good family, and if you put her in jail, that will change her whole life. She can't go to university. He said, I'll scare her. So on Thursday, I was marched in. He looked at me and he said, "Get out of here."
You had a lot of courage.
So there were all kinds of things, but that was my youth. That was a long time ago.
Well, Rosemary told me you were Miss Israel. How did that all come about?
Oh, I was in the university,
Yes.
and newspaperman, a photographer, came by. I was sitting with all kinds of people in a coffee shop, and he wanted to take my picture. So they said, well, take the picture. He said, then don't give them the right to publish it. I said, good idea. So I took the picture, and before I knew it, here was the newspaper, front page, that picture. Who is going to be Miss Israel this year? Oh my God, my mother.
What was she going to do with you?
So there was like on the sides, I'll show you that newspaper.
Let us see it.
And it said, who is going to be Miss Israel this year? And all my friends thought that I was a contestant, which I wasn't. This guy took my picture and they put it there. So, and I didn't like the picture. So I went, Israel was a small country.
Yes.
I went to the editor and I said to him, listen, first of all, the picture is terrible. Secondly, everybody thinks I'm a contestant, and I am not. And thirdly, I said, my mother will kill me.
Yeah.
So he said to me, well, all the girls are in the other room. Why don't you go and see? So I went, and I said, I didn't think I was pretty. And I said, one way of getting away from my mother.
She was strict.
So I said to him, okay, I'll make a deal with you. Unless I'm among the last, the 10,
Be chosen.
the 10 finalists,
Oh,
no more pictures.
okay.
And he said, okay. I came home because I was in Jerusalem too. I came home and my mother said, don't you think I read newspapers? She said, well, you did it. So people were saying that the girl that is chosen knows ahead of time. It's rigged. So I decided if it's rigged, I'm going to do something. I'm not going to show up. So I'm going to say, well, I didn't get it because I wasn't there.
Okay.
So I went to the beach. And when I came home, my mother was standing there on the balcony, and she said, I didn't like what you were doing, but when you make your bed, you have to sleep in it. Here is the dress. You're going to put the dress on and go. But they were afraid that I wouldn't get it, so they didn't come to the place. And before I knew it, I was there alone.
Mm.
And they say, this is Miss Israel. And one of the reasons that they thought it was rigged, because they put another dress on the winner. And I said, how do they know what the dress is going
Yes, really.
to fit? Well, it had an elastic this big in the back. So they put that dress on me. I didn't know what's happening. And before I knew it, my parents were there and all this. And the rest is history, because this is how I came to the United States.
How so?
I came to compete in Miss Universe.
What was that like?
Fun.
Fun? funny away from your mother.
Fun. But not only that, but first of all, I wouldn't take pictures with the German girl because her father was in the Wehrmacht.
Oh,
So that made news. She wouldn't take pictures. Then I was among the last 10 there, and everybody has to give a speech. And it so happened that my commander in the historical branch was the ambassador in Los Angeles at that time, and he wrote me a speech.
oh, well, that was handy. Yeah.
And so I took the speech. I spoke some English, but not much, because, you know, my mother spoke English. And I decided that the speech is saccharine-like, and I don't really like it. So what I did was I was very dramatic. I took the paper and I tore it.
On stage?
On stage, on camera, on television. And I spoke from my heart. And I spoke and I said that I would like people to live, you know, in peace. I worked for it. And whatever, I have that speech. And I quoted Isaiah that we should live. I forgot what it is now that was in the speech. Where lions and lamb
Lay down together.
will live together and all that kind of thing. So that made news. And there was a person that saw the television show and decided that I'm going to be a good representative for UJA.
Okay.
To get people's money.
Okay.
So I started to go from city to city, speaking extemporaneously. And I did it for 2 years.
What an opportunity.
That was great. I also was on television. I was on the Steve Allen show. I taught him how to make falafel.
And by that time, you decided to stay in America?
I had a problem because the people that sponsored the Miss Israel wanted me back.
In Israel?
Yeah. And life was too good.
Here?
Yeah. So I decided to stay.
Well, how did you support yourself after 2 years of fundraising?
I got a lot of money.
How? From what?
First of all, the speeches. I got paid.
You got paid to make the casino?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hotels were free. I mean, it was pretty good for a girl that doesn't have much to spend, given dresses by every store. Actually, I was in Detroit,
Oh,
and I spoke in Detroit. And there was a very, very good women's store there, and they gave me about 2 or 3 or 4
Jacobson's?
dresses.
Trying to
I
remember.
think so.
Interesting. Yeah.
And everybody was after me with bag of envelopes trying to introduce me to their son. After all, I'm Jewish from Israel.
And did it work?
No, I had too much fun. I don't want to settle down. And when those 2 years were over, I was also offered a part in a play that never happened. But from there, I got a scholarship to Stella Adler. But I wasn't good. So I did that. And from there, I went to modeling.
Runway modeling or store?
Photographic, mainly for South America.
And you stayed with that for a while?
Yeah. I was dating, I was doing this and this and that. I went to Paris, did modeling in Paris. It was fun, and then I got married. But I got married to somebody that was not a high flyer. I wanted a house with a picket fence with 2 children, and I found the man. It was a big mistake, though. He used to be a guide in Paris in his youth, but he died when he didn't die. He died intellectually. Once he was married and went to his father's business. And so the marriage wasn't terrific. But I thought that since I have the children, I have to stay because there's always a father and mother and 2 children. And I did it. I taught Hebrew. I was at home. I think my kids are great. My life was really, at all times, was fantastic. Only my marriage wasn't so fantastic because I wanted to go to theater, I wanted to go to concerts, and my husband just didn't want to. So I volunteered at a Shakespeare theater in Bethel, Connecticut. And I did a lot of work there. And I went into New York and also worked a little bit in the Westport Playhouse, where I lived in Westport.
Well, we certainly learned a great deal here, and that sometimes adversity is a great teacher, and it teaches you a sense of independence and responsibility. Innately, she, as she said, a tomboy to the core, but also heard her own music about going out and doing things, and was really an entrepreneur in her life, taking advantage of opportunities where she could, and factoring in a sense of fun along the way, and also duty. So as you go into your life, remember, be responsible, be innovative, have fun, and thank you so very much for tuning in. Do something nice for someone you like and someone you don't like this week, and I'll see you next time.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadone.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadone.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Doan.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.